Good morning. It's May 14th at 9:05 a.m. We are here to meet for negotiations between the City of Pocatello and the Local 187, which is our fire union. There was a small typo on our notice that was amended and has been corrected to not say arbitration and to say negotiations. That's much more preferred by both parties. At our last meeting, we had both passed across one item that both parties needed to review. I just wondered if you had any feedback.
No, we didn't see any issues with that one. So
Would you be okay TAing the MOU one then?
Yeah.
We do have a counter proposal to your title changes. There is one more title change the chief has asked for. So begins the walking. It's the Community Relations and Education Specialist. Chief Gates has asked that be updated to say Community Risk Reduction Specialist.
Just as a question, so why?
I have that, but I have to look.
Okay.
Chief Gates says he talked to the employee who holds the position and there are benefits such as our ISO rating.
Okay.
That's the extent of my knowledge on this one, guys, sorry.
All right. Really, the other ones we're doing because that's a little more moving to what their comparables within the city and around the country are. And if that's something that helps us out with an ISO rating, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that.
And the employee was okay with it, and it's a singularly held position. There's no change to the job functions, so I think that it's a pretty simple one
Just
for
the
us.
title. Okay. Do we want to go ahead and TA both of those? What's that?
The original.
Okay.
Do you want to sign mine since mine will be attached as the minutes?
On regular? I've got the contract here.
And then do you have,
The first one?
I can pull mine out, Andrew.
So what you got?
So will this be,
Actually,
this is actually two.
Yeah.
This will be,
yeah, so this is schedule A. This is schedule B.
okay. Here's two one, that was presented before. And then here's the title changes.
Okay, if you give me that. Oh,
Just need to make sure it's actually correct.
okay. We have one quick question.
Yeah.
We were just looking at the actual contract, and on Schedule E, at the bottom, it's got any officer temporarily assuming a chief's position shall remain a member of the bargaining unit. All members of the bargaining unit are classified as non-exempt employees. Just want to make double sure that language isn't going away. That's still.
It is. I just updated the top. That's still included in the final document. I just didn't include the footnotes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good point, though. Thank you. I'll make note. Schedule E?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Well, we've already been done more than we did at the last meeting, so this is a good sign.
Absolutely. Well,
So-
here
I know.
in about 7 minutes, we'll have been here longer.
That's a good way to look at it.
Okay,
Do
well,
you guys have proposals you'd like to put forward? Do you want us to go first?
do you guys have some proposals today?
We do. I have a lot of just housekeeping items on the contract, so don't let your eyes bug out of your head when I pull these out, okay?
You know, I think it would be, where it's just housekeeping, let's try to get through that so that we've got that off the table. So I would like it if you'd go
So
first.
I have a lot. They're non-economic. As far as I can see, we can address each one. The first one is big. This is a red line of the contract, and all it is formatting update, continuous line numbers. Here's a PDF because I didn't print a full copy for each of you. I figured you had your own dog-eared copy available. And I do have a summary page that lists what the majority of the little nitpick changes are.
There's 2 copies here?
There's a clean version and a red line.
Okay.
And then a PDF of each document is available on the thumb drive.
Okay.
So you guys drafted an MOU a while back, and instead of union, you'd referred to yourselves as Local 187. I went ahead and made that change in the contract just to more accurately represent your body. If you don't want that change, I was just trying to go with the language I was seeing coming in from the union itself. I moved the font to a more friendly font for people who are dyslexic. An Arial font is easier for people usually. Spacing, I standardize it across the document. The line numbering is now continuous. It doesn't restart on each page. So when we're talking to a citizen and they say, well, what line? And you say, well, line 13 on page 42, I can just say line 1400. Dates have been updated to say fiscal year 22. The City of Pocatello logo was updated. The table of contents is now an active table. You can click on the header and it'll take you to the section. Abbreviations have been updated to clarify what the abbreviation stands for, and then the abbreviation is used after that. Language has been adjusted to be inclusive and gender neutral. There was very few references that were him, but we did correct those. And pay schedules were updated, not changed, just to include annual salary. That's a comment we get a lot from citizens when they're trying to figure out how fire's paid. They struggle a little bit with, well, what do they make an hour? And then we have to go through that, well, they work 29.12, so we're just giving them all that information up front. All content changes are in separate offers, so if there is anything in this that you feel is a content issue, please let me know, because that was not the intent. It was simple, just grammatical and typo type of situations, spacing, closing of parentheses. Obviously, you're going to need time to read through this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there multiple copies of the summary?
No, that's,
This
well,
one's,
this one's a red line. Actually, this is,
Are there multiple copies of the summary?
Oh, there is, sorry.
okay, yeah, that's gonna take a little bit to
It
digest.
is, it's a lot to chew through,
Thank you.
especially when you get down into the tables, because those changes just can print on completely separate sheet seats. So, good luck.
Okay,
But there is no intent of any sort of content change on these. Oh, the other big change is subsections. I did label so that they're hyperlinked to the index. So obviously there will be some reading on this one.
all right. Okay, yeah, it'll take us a minute to get through that, so we'll go from there.
I'm sorry, you're gonna hear me talk a lot today. So this is city proposal number 3. It's changes to Article 16, which is vacations, birthday, holidays, and Kelly days. The city is hoping to eliminate use of the word birthday holiday and go to floating holiday, and also to define where employee holidays are categorized. With the new administration in Washington, we anticipate some possible changes to what holidays are called. So we just want to make sure that employees enjoy those holidays regardless of the department that they're in.
No, nothing, I was
No,
just organizing my thoughts.
I'm guessing I'm going to throw all this paper at you and then we're going to take a nice long caucus.
Well, and before we do that, we'll want to put some out so
Yeah,
that you guys have
trade
the
back and
ability to
forth.
be looking at something as well.
questions off the top of your head on that one?
Well, I guess one thing, I mean, if we're gonna be moving our 40-hour employees to how it's defined in the personnel policy handbook, obviously any changes to the personnel policy handbook, we're gonna have to be able to agree to, or at least have a discussion when those changes take place.
So it references all days given off to other city employees, which leaves ambiguity. If you want, we can strike that yellow line, but the city will not negotiate its handbook with the union.
Well,
Just,
I mean, obviously we'll
can't.
end up having a discussion in the back, so.
but just as a note, we can strike that line and just go with the floating holiday if you prefer. The problem is there is no definition as to other holidays given then. Clear contracts are like fences. They make for better neighbors. If you've ever lived next to a yapping dog, when I lived in town, we had a Chihuahua. I feel that clean contracts make it so much easier for everybody to navigate, but if that's a pressure point, I totally understand and would realize why you would want to take that out. Okay. Getting the steps in today. This one is documentation of a past practice into the contract. So Article 18, Section B is the HRA payments made to employees in the fire department. Currently, if you are enrolled in the medical program and an employee as of the start of the fiscal year, you receive $1,000 in your VIVA. Any employees who, in your HRA, any employees who come on after that, their amount is prorated. That's the long-standing practice. However, we don't have anything to point to employees to tell them about that practice. So this is just putting that in here as to how that payout will occur.
Employees will receive a prorated lump sum?
Yes.
Okay.
I assume you're not interested in going to a per paycheck contribution.
Not so much.
Payroll has had their fingers crossed. I said I would ask. We're just trying to ease some of the administration.
Understood.
Ready for 5?
Yeah,
All right.
keep them rolling.
I have a lot of paper clips. So this is changes to Article 18, Section D, which is dental coverage. The contract currently references a low and a high program. We offer a basic and enhanced. It's just matching the language to how people enroll. There is a clarification on how rates are defined, and we just put that in as fiscal year council adopted plans. So please make sure you read through this one and you're very comfortable. I also did take out the provider name so that if we do change dental providers, we don't have a flaw in our contract. I can't read this stuff today. This is city proposal number 6. It is a much more substantial proposal than what we have passed forward. This is Article 3, which is reasonable suspicion, drug and alcohol testing. The city is providing a whole rewrite to this section that adopts the city adopted policy that's approved by council. This is a big change, so you will need time to digest. I'm guessing at the moment you won't have any specific questions, but you will when we reconvene.
Okay.
I know we're going to have some back and forth on this one, so I'll just hold all of our ideas until you have a chance to understand the policy.
Yeah, well, and I was just looking, I mean, we already have reasonable suspicion.
You do, and
In-
on the second page of the document, I struck that entire section.
Okay. Well, and I guess, you know, one of my questions just off the cuff is, has this been a problem? I mean, is this something that the city feels like is an issue that justifies making a big change?
I feel like there's a gap there. We're not sure what sort of training is being delivered and if your employees are being certified. I think it also could possibly cause problems between the police department and the fire department if we're having to pull police employees over to do analysis of a fire employee. I think that puts supervisors in the fire department in a very vulnerable position. This is a much more outside, you go in, you have the test done with reasonable suspicion standards that are defined and reviewed on a federal level. It is a big change. I'm happy to bring in my subject matter expert when we get into the discussion on that.
Well, I mean, obviously, we've got to have a discussion that.
Well, I know, but you're also doing a cold read of a major change, so
Yes.
I don't want anyone to feel rushed. We really want you to be comfortable with what we're handing across. Ready for the next one?
Sure.
The next one is a whole new section. Because it's not a long enough contract, I decided to add more to it. With Idaho Statute 72-438, which is the presumptive illness, the city is asking for the union to adopt a tobacco-free workplace. This is language that we use in the handbook. However, we do not reference to the handbook. We're putting the exact language in the contract, so there can be no changes. This prohibits any tobacco, including cigarettes, e-cigarettes, cigars, pipes, snuff, and chewing tobacco in city vehicles or in city buildings.
Have you looked at our SOGs?
The problem is SOGs aren't defined in the contract. They're not approved by council. Those are things done between fire management and the union. So council doesn't see those or get to approve them.
Okay.
That's kind of a flaw with an SOG. The governing body doesn't get to see or weigh in on those.
Well, do they need to get that far into the weeds?
This isn't under the weeds because of the presumptive illness legislation that went through. There is quite a potential cost overhead for the city for cancer claims. So we want to make sure we're mitigating those at the base level.
Take a look.
Attached to that offer are two handouts for the city. The first one is Idaho statute, and the second is the House bill that went through, number 554, on the legislation. Hold on, I can't find my 8. Yeah. Make sure I got your 8 right too. This is a rewrite of Article 6, which is discrimination, ADA, ADEA, and EEO. It also aligns the fire department to fall under, to have the protection of the abusive conduct and bullying section. However, it's not specifically listed as an item number. It is listed as a handbook reference, so you will want to read through this. I'm handing over 4 at once this time. Nine, 10, 11, and 12 are all have similar content, but I wanted you to be able to address each section separately in case there were problems just based on the section. This is updating calendar days to business or work days. Obviously, we have different types of work days. The other problem is sometimes it doesn't fall on a business day or a day that we can reach out to arbitration based on calendar days. So if you could just read through these 4 and let us know if there's any concerns, because we would like to address those. If it was like a 60 calendar day or weekday, we put clarification in as to what that is. A Monday through Friday, excluding city recognized holidays. That little caveat will not show up in every section. It will just show up in the first section where we define the term. So that's settlement of dispute and discipline on section C. Article 27, subsequent contract, section A. Article 24, layoff and recall. And Article 28, section D, procedures and recommendations.
I don't have that one in front of me yet.
I'm going to that second.
I've got 10, which is, 10 is the subsequent contract, or contract one, but didn't have the layoff and recall.
And because they are each such different sections, we wanted you to be able to consider them separately. Andrew, you doing okay over there with all the handouts? Yep. These are city proposals 13 and 14. They both refer to Article 16 vacation bidding. Article number 13 is Section E. It references SOP 5009. I don't know historically if we had SOPs, but I know you now have SOGs. So we're just making that correction from the P to the G. It's minute, but then it's accurate. And then proposal 14 is taking out the memorandum of understanding between the local and the chief. That's referenced in SOG 5009 as well, so we're just taking out that language because it is already agreed upon within an SOG, not an MOU. Lots of housekeeping, getting the dust bunnies out.
Did I give you extra?
No.
Did I short you?
That's all right. Thank you.
The stack is getting smaller, I promise.
What's that?
Proposal 15 is a more robust change. This was written by fire management, so if you have technical questions, we'll have to wait till next time we meet. This is a change, suggested rewrite of Article 28, subsection 2, addressing the combat challenge. We would like to eliminate what is currently the combat challenge and go to a physical agility test that would be defined between the union and the city over the course of fiscal year 22. If no agreement is reached, we would then revert to the original combat challenge language in the next CBA. I'm not sure how I write that into an offer, but it is in here and we'll have to figure out how to wordsmith that. This is a pretty big change, so I understand there's gonna have to be a lot of conversation on this. And I'm probably not that person that you need to have the conversation with, so we'll have the expert here next time.
Fair enough.
I could take a break and you guys could go.
Well, before we put anything down, we just wanted to take a quick break.
Okay. I have a few more, but
Yeah.
I've been talking at you for a while.
Got some more. We'll keep.
Just keep going?
coming.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's just-
let's just,
So 16 is, I don't even know if we need to do it. I can tell you that the PDF looks like a 1. I can tell you the Word document looks like an I. We need it to say 1 because it is referencing state code. So it's just making sure both parties understand that it is a 1, not an I in the language. So this is Article 36, Procedural Agreement, Section N, Stalemate Resolution, which references Idaho Code 44-1805. Sometimes it looks like an I, sometimes it looks like a 1. We could TA this one. I'm excited when we get those.
yeah, I mean,
Just keep.
yeah, let's just
Keep trucking through?
Keep on trucking.
Okay, I'm gonna need a break. Passing these out faster than you're passing them out.
Slow down.
This is management offer number, just in case you're counting, 17. It's Article 36, Procedural Agreement, Section 12, Deadline for New Issues. Currently, the contract says the deadline for new issues is the 3rd negotiation session. The city's asking for the 5th negotiation session. Sometimes we run into trouble with negotiation sessions happening as the legislature is going, and we don't have definitive answers from the legislature by the time we hit the 3rd meeting. So we are looking for a little bit more of a leeway there to get us defined in the contract that when we do run into situations like this year, which has been very interesting, we still have time to bring up new issues as legislation changes around us.
Well, I mean, this has been a historically long session.
Yes, it has. Very expensive session at that. All right. We're winding down. This is city proposal number 18, Article 36, bargaining process. This is the economic part we talked about last week. I just put some clarification. Right now it says economic issues as defined by both parties before considering economic issues. I took the agreement out because sometimes in a 10-year agreement on anything is difficult. We've all been there. By saying non-economic issues before considering employee compensation and employee contributed benefit issues. It defines what economic would be. That means a monetary impact to an employee's take-home or contributions. Once again, good fence, good neighbors. Okay, city proposal 19. There could be some discrepancy on whether or not this is an economic issue. The city does not consider it to have an economic impact to the union. If you consider it economic, we're happy to pull it and then bring it up later. This is the addition of an Article 17 to the CBA. It's an enhanced employee assistance program that would be mandatory for firefighters, drivers, operators, paramedics, captains, and battalion chiefs. There's one mandatory visit per fiscal year. That is a one paid visit. And then your incidents are 20 voluntary visits per incident. One thing to understand about EAP in general is once a medical diagnosis is made off of EAP visits, you can no longer continue EAP. It does have to roll to your medical plan. That is not by the city's design, that is how EAP itself is designed. So anytime you hit a medical diagnosis, it does have to shift you over. We have never had an employee hit 20 visits on an EAP issue. It could occur, so we want to make sure that that language does remain in here. Any questions on this one?
I mean, it pretty much mirrors what you guys did with the police.
It's
a few years
mirrored
ago.
language, just an updated job titles. It's not for administrative staff, it's for your emergency responders out in the field. That is why positions are defined within the policy or section. I might need some help with wording on the next one. You guys don't have this one. So this is City Proposal 20, Article 28, Health and Safety, Section C. Referenced in number 2, it says the Basic Safety Manual will include the IFSTA 2009 First Edition Firefighter Safety. Anything that was referenced in the contract, we tried to research to make sure that was still accurate. Fire Management did this for us. Apparently that doesn't really exist, so it's referencing nothing. So we can go with the NFPA 1500 will serve as a guide, but not a firm standard, because I know there are pieces of that that do not fit. We're unsure of how to approach this wording, though we would like to be accurate, so we would love feedback on this one.
Okay, we'll have to do,
Yeah. We're kind of at a loss how to handle something that has no historical reference. Because I don't know what the intent of when it was put in, because I can't go back and read what it was. And that's all the non-economic issues I have for today.
okay.
Your turn.
All right, so we'd like to take a brief break and then come back in.
The Wamazawa is booked for you till noon.
All right. All right, so we just had a quick question. So you guys have your economic proposals prepared today?
Not all of them.
Not
And
all
I
of
can't
them?
guarantee that all my non-economic are done.
Okay. All right, we would, it would be nice if we could get all the proposals on the table. I know that in this, you've asked for being able to put new proposals on after the 5th session, so obviously you want to be able to have latitude to get it out there, but I do think that it's important that the proposals get out early,
Agreed.
so that both sides have time to work on it and get through them. And so, we would really like to be able to have all proposals on the table today.
I'm sorry, we can't put all proposals down today.
Okay. All right, we're gonna take a break and then we'll be back.
We're
Okay.
back on.
Sorry that was a little longer break than we intended. There was a lot to absorb there.
That there was, yes.
Yes.
How many copies do you guys want?
4.
Okay. You guys want these? We've all got them. But, all right. So in the spirit of language cleanup, we were looking through Article 18 of the CBA. And there's an awful lot of language in there that's holdover from when we transitioned from city insurance to the Northwest Trust. This is simply going through all of that, striking the language for the old percentages that were in the contract. And it also just updated the dates. There's a couple of dates in there, and really that was just in case it's a multi-year contract. Obviously, we'd have to adjust that depending on what agreement we come out of here with. And then we just got rid of that top line about the Viva plan being offered by the city and being it, and then us establishing our own, because obviously we already have. And I don't have my proposals numbered, so this would be number 2.
It was hard to keep all of mine in order.
Yeah,
Does this mean you are looking for a 2-year contract?
no, not necessarily. I mean, I do think that, and we'll get there, but I do think that we prefer to have a multi-year contract just because this is a long process and it's tiring on both sides, but we've not really made a decision as far as what the term of that contract is, and obviously we'll get there as a group. I do think that we would prefer to be in the 2 to 3 range, but that's not actually a proposal.
I'm just trying to make sure we're all kind of looking in the same direction.
Yeah.
Your union proposal too does have substantial economic impact to the city, so we will need to do some research and run some numbers on this one.
How?
Your healthcare costs currently exceed what the city's paying for regular employees. So the
And-
8% that's listed in there is something that we would have to look at.
Okay. Well, and historically, the city's health insurance has varied in increase from this year. I mean, it actually took a reduction, which actually was surprising to both of us. But there's been times in the past when it's been 20 to 25% and then been kind of negotiated down and been 17. So
I'm aware. It's just-
8% has good cost containment.
It's just something that we need to look at, so I'm just letting you know we can't TA on this item because it does have an economic impact and we do have to look at the budget.
Okay, well, and that was our current contract language, so I do understand that that's an economic impact, but that's also an impact that was in the contract.
I don't have an issue that it has an economic, I'm just letting you know why I can't
Fair enough.
really even engage on it today.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, so proposal number 3 is battalion chief list. So in the last contract, we got rid of the battalion chief list, and so we moved to doing battalion chief promotions on an as-needed basis and not forming a list.
Okay.
Additionally, this would go back to having a list, and it would also have the battalion chief promotion be subject to the same exams as our captains and drivers. This is one of the most important parts in our department, and so this would just have a more competitive promotional process rather than just an interview.
Okay. I do have a couple questions just because I've seen a couple rounds of promotions. You guys do internal testing as part of a cost measure to keep costs low. How do you test battalion chiefs when you only have 3 people qualified, in essence, to do that?
Do you want me to answer?
I'm
So what you do is you ask for outside help.
Okay, so you
So
bring
what you
in,
do is you bring in, which is pretty much standard across the state. We would ask for battalion chiefs from Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, Boise to come over, and they would test our candidates.
okay,
And on our captain's testing and our company officer testing, we currently do bring in like the chief from Chubbuck or a chief from, or a representative from Idaho Falls, because we do have some outside evaluators that are involved in our captain's testing.
I understand, but you also have captains who aren't going for positions. You can't use step-up battalion chiefs because they're going to be lobbying to be on the list. So I just wanted to understand. So thank you for the clarification, Curtis.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, number four is going to be, I mean, it's a fairly big one because it is a change to our schedule.
Okay.
So, Scott does have a lot of work into this, but it would be going from our current schedule, which is called a modified Detroit, to what's called the 4896. It would consist of 2 shifts, or 2 consecutive 24-hour shifts, and then 4 days off. And this is basically it's the industry standard in the state of Idaho. There's only a couple of of departments in the state that don't work this schedule. The vast majority of them, I think 26 of 33 full-time Idaho departments run this schedule.
Say that number again.
26 of 33 full-time
Okay.
departments in the state do. It's the prominent schedule in the West, and built into that proposal is a means to be able to have a trial period. So we would basically start into it and have a trial, and assuming that the trial goes well, then we would move to it as a permanent schedule. One thing that is an advantage for the city is that currently we have 3 separate FLSA schedules in the department because each platoon has their own schedule. Everybody would be on the same FLSA schedule with that, and we would move to a 12-day FLSA cycle rather than 3 separate 9-day ones. I'm glad to answer any questions you've got. There are some other efficiencies that are within that schedule because since you're working 2 consecutive 24-hour shifts, you come in and you do your rig checks in the morning of the first day, and because you've been on that rig for that period of time, you're not spending half an hour every morning going over the rig that you've already checked the following day. There's a little bit of it's a little bit greener because people are coming to work half as often, so there's less commuting and a little less congestion.
So can you do some clarification for me on your bottom blue italic paragraph where it talks about an implementation manual on page 1?
We can talk about that.
Yeah, Scott, please.
Yeah, so I think the idea behind this trial period would be that before the implementation, we would come to an agreement as to what metrics for the department and our employees we're going to look at as a group to determine whether the schedule has got a positive impact, a neutral impact, or a negative impact. We fully expect that the schedule will be entirely positive, and if not, then it would just be a neutral impact on everything from department costs, efficiencies, and I think most importantly for us, firefighter well-being. And so we expect everything to have a positive impact and possibly, some of those financial ones, a neutral at worst. But to ensure that, we'd like to have some metrics kind of figured out ahead of time. We all agree to that we can evaluate during the trial period to make sure that is in fact the case.
So,
go ahead.
sorry, in here it says if the parties fail to cooperatively produce an implementation manual, the union will make the decision?
So not the decision, but I guess the reason that's in there, we have been working with fire department staff on producing this manual already.
And by
so-
staff, you mean
Fire department staff,
like,
management.
like
Man.
assistant chiefs and chiefs?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there is a draft exists, which I believe that both parties would agree is more or less a complete draft. I mean, there hasn't been any official agreement on anything, but we've been able to come to a lot of agreement on how things would look if we were to move to the schedule. And the reason that it says that if we fail to fully come to an agreement by the transition date is to ensure that we did actually make the move at the transition date using what we had at that point in time.
So aside from maybe other issues, which I'm not going to get into at this point in time, I'm sort of intrigued with what you said about the firefighter well-being.
Yeah.
I would like to know a little bit more about how the bargaining unit senses or what your sense is of what well-being, how that would be enhanced.
So I think the biggest one, and this comes from a handful of peer-reviewed studies that have been done on the schedule, as well as piles of testimony from individuals that have worked the schedule, particularly ones who have worked our schedule and then moved to the schedule. The biggest thing that's reported is an increase in the overall restfulness or the overall rest levels that guys have or individuals have. The arrangement of the work days, and this is really nothing more, I guess, from an administrative point than rearranging some colored blocks on a calendar. But the arrangement of those work periods has been shown, again, through studies and testimony to improve the recovery post-shift on your off days so that you're fresher when you come back on shift for your next work cycle. And I think that has then led to improved work satisfaction, improved performance at work, improved family life. And another, I guess, byproduct of that arrangement of work periods, a lot of families also reported that even though there's no change in hours worked, it's still the exact same hours worked every year. They feel that their firefighter is present more at home, present more to help with household duties, present more to be with the kids, that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that comes back to the fact that the recovery periods are more beneficial than what we currently have.
So and again, sort of intrigued with one of the statements about more time at home. It's the same number of hours, right?
Right, and this is a perception thing.
Oh, okay.
From the families of the firefighters.
Okay. And have you had any sense at all of what the impact would be, for instance, just payroll, how that would impact the payroll process, and administratively, how that might work?
What do you mean administrative, like cost-wise, or how it would operate?
Well, it's change from the way it's currently working. I would assume that you've taken that into consideration, that there may be some more administrative elements associated with how that would be, how that would work for the city of Pocatello.
Yeah, again, I'm not a finance person, but the expectation would be that certainly there's going to be a few things involved with making the transition, but once the transition is made, at least from what we understand, it should actually be easier. We consolidate into a single FLSA cycle instead of having to track 3 for all the fire department employees. And then beyond that, it would essentially work the same way. You're still getting 24-hour work periods. You're still working 1 out of 3 days, more or less. There really would be no substantial change to how we do things now.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
Can I add one thing? Most departments that have switched to this schedule have experienced a reduction in sick leave, and they've also experienced a reduction in premium costs, premium pay hours. Premium pay would go down slightly for the.
So premium being like overtime, is that what you're talking about?
FLSA overtime, the
Yeah,
premium
okay.
hours that are on our check.
Okay. Do you have data to support that?
Yeah, I think.
And actually, I can actually assure you that premium pay would go down by, I'd say, approximately $8,000 per year at a minimum. And that's simply
For this
because-
department, you're saying?
Yes, and that's simply because going from the 9-day cycle to the 12-day cycle, DOL puts out the table as to what the cutoff is for your premium hours, depending on your work period length. And it's a rounded table. So, right now we're at 68 hours. Anything over 68 hours in our 72-hour period are premium hours, right, for a regular 9-day cycle. And that's a rounded number, it's based on a ratio of, I can't remember, a certain number of hours to a 7-day cycle. And you match that ratio with, they're all rounded numbers in the table. And so currently, the rounding puts us at 68 hours. With the 12-day cycle, the rounding puts us at 91 hours. And if you go through the year, that will actually short us 10 hours over the course of the year. So that's 10 premium hours per employee per year, which I can assure will amount to at least 8,000.
A couple of years ago, Andy had provided some literature to me, just kind of letting me learn about the 4896 because it was a new concept to me. Do you have any updated literature or research that's done by an independent party and not union generated?
We do. I can certainly get it to you. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of union generated information or department generated information out there, but there are a handful of peer reviewed studies that are
Peer
available.
review?
Peer reviewed, yes. And those, when I say peer reviewed, I'm talking like medical studies reviewed by other doctors or other psychologists or whatever, whoever may be doing the study.
What would be the easiest way to get those to you?
If you could just bring them to the next meeting so that they're disclosed here. Obviously, this is a big one.
Yeah, obviously that's a big one.
And I do think it's important to add that I think this also, we have, I'm sure everybody will, we have a little bit of a morale issue in the fire department. We have several employees that have left just recently to go to departments which run the 4896. And so we're hopefully that this will help with our retention of employees, so they will not be leaving us strictly for, to go to a department with the exact same job functions, titles and everything, but just for the pure, just after 4896. And as Andy pointed out, it has become the predominant schedule in the state. And so there's very few departments that still work the schedule that we're currently in.
So along those lines, do you have the individuals that left, and is the presumption that they left because of the 4896? Did you actually have some element of discussion with them along the lines of why they left?
Yes, and one of the reasons that they have left is the 4096, because we have been working towards this for the last several years, and it appears to be very little headway. And so there was some concerns with these individuals. And as you know, it's difficult to move from fire department to fire department. Unlike the police department where they do laterals, very few departments do laterals. You have to retest with the department to get on. So these individuals have tested in Idle Falls or Twin Falls or Boise or Coeur d'Alene, and they're at the top of the list. And so instead of waiting to see if we get the 4886, they move to a department that is on the 4886.
Yeah, and those guys, when they come in, are coming in as a probationary firefighter regardless of their experience. One of the guys that left and went to Coeur d'Alene had 10 years on the Pocatello Fire Department and moved to Coeur d'Alene to start over as a probationary firefighter. It may not be the only reason that they're leaving, because I mean, obviously you've got family and you've got other issues that maybe bring it up, but that is one of the reasons that they cite.
While we have this in front of us, I'd like to just kind of make sure that this line in here about the transition date to the new schedule occurring within a 2-week window, just so there's no questions on this later. Again, we expect this to be either a financially neutral change or a financially positive change for the city. But there are some things with FLSA cycles, particularly our 3 different 9-day cycles, and then moving to a single 12-day cycle where if you did it on the wrong day, could force overtime costs by federal law, which we want to try to avoid for that transition. So somewhere within a 2-week window, And we really want to let I think the financial experts in the finance department go figure out that particular date. We do have ideas as to what we think that the best date would be within a cycle. But again, we don't have all the financial data, so we want to make sure that a date can be picked by the city that is the best day to make the transition.
Well, this is a big deal, obviously, and it's going to take us a little bit of time to review it. And it sounds like it's a big deal to you guys, too.
I know you put a lot of time into it.
Yeah. One thing I would like to mention, Jim, just because you were talking about, or we were talking about how there's generally better rest on this schedule than on our current one. Something that happens working at the fire department, because we work 24-hour shifts, it's disruptive for your sleep. The day that you're at work, you're sleeping in a bed that's not yours. You're getting up to go on calls. It's disruptive. And so a lot of times what that does is it impacts not only the day that you work, but the following day is a catch-up day. And so because we work 24 hours and then we're off for 24 hours, and then we work 24, off 24, work 24, and then we're off for the time that we're off, it impacts our sleep negatively 6 days out of every 9. And if we go to this schedule, then it would impact our sleep directly like that 6 days out of every 12. And that's how you get a little bit better long-term recovery on sleep.
So I have a couple of questions, just because obviously I'm not as well indoctrinated in this as you. What happens on the second day if your first day was horrendous? What do you do with the exhaustion factor of employees?
Well, so, I mean, obviously we're still there to do a job, and so it's one of those things that we would work with management, and we would try to make sure that we take care of things. But if we have things that have to be done, they have to be done. If we have to go on calls, we still have to go on calls, but the assumption would be that the captain was there with you, and if you had a really rough night the previous night, then the captain's going to grant a little bit of latitude as long as we're still getting our job done.
So what does grant a little bit of latitude mean?
So,
I think it's important to realize that, we have supervisory staff, and their job is to run the crews. And I'll point to Boise Fire, who's been on the 4896 now for 5 or 6 years. They have the busiest single engine company in the state. Station 5 downtown is the single busiest engine company. Yet they have found a way to stay productive that second day, get their job duties done. So I think those things can be overcome. And we won't know till we actually move to it. It's all speculation at this point. What will we do that second day? We need to move to it, have a trial period, so we can address those issues and see how we address those and overcome those. Because right now it's just all speculation at this point. And so we have to look to other departments, how they have managed it. And I will say every department that has moved to it has stayed on it. And there are departments that have run busier engine companies, busier ambulances than ours do, and they have found a way to make it work. So I think within this trial period, we can address these issues and figure out how to overcome those over the course of time versus just, spitball, how do we do it? Well, how do we do a lot of, we will work through those and figure those out over the course of time.
So do all of the other agencies that you are aware of, have they done it on a trial basis and then they all?
Yes.
So-
Every department has done it on a trial basis because these are the fears from management and staff. Do your training hours drop? Are you productive? And so they've all gone to trial basis and they've all worked through these issues. And we have reached out to these departments and we've talked to them to see how they work through them. They've all have found ways to work through these. And so we feel we can as well. If it has become the standard and nobody has moved back,
So not one of them that did it on a trial basis ended up deciding that they shouldn't do it that way?
no, not one.
and
What does our medical director say for our paramedics who are very, very busy? I know the call volume on the medic side is high.
I'm trying to remember who's had a conversation with him. So his opinion is, I don't even want to speculate. I know that the discussions happened, but I don't want to say something that's not right.
My understanding of those discussions, at least from later management meetings, with our fire department staff and the medical director and other individuals as well, is that the medical director is not opposed to the schedule as long as we do have those kind of supervisory and management controls in place, like Curtis is talking about, to ensure that we manage any fatigue, any short-term fatigue.
And there are ambulance agencies. Idle Falls runs a 4896. They manage their ambulance companies. Coeur d'Alene, Cooney County, Northern Lakes, Selkirk Fire. There are several agencies out there that run ambulances, run the ambulance service, and work the 4896 as well.
And do any of these other agencies have policies in place to address the exhaustion if you have to put someone, I mean, do they go on sick leave while they're recuperating and you have to backfill?
To my knowledge, they have been able to work through it without having to backfill with going on sick leave. They have just managed it in-house. And we have had, we have those abilities in station. If an ambulance company gets crushed for a night, we have the ability to split that medic, right? We could take the medic who was the patient man, move him to the engine company. So, and to be honest, we are looking at our paramedic system as a whole, and I think you'll see a proposal come later to review some of this.
Sorry, I'm skipping ahead apparently.
So we have, it's not, and to be quite honest, we have paramedics that can get hammered today and work overtime the next day and are able to work through that or do transfers. So we're dealing with those issues as we speak currently, just due to call volume, transfers, overtime, and the few number of medics. And so moving to a 4896 isn't going to, I don't feel, will impact them much different than they are now. We allow trades, we allow different things, so we have found ways to work around that. And so if you have a paramedic that gets crushed on a day and then gets forced to take a transfer the next day and then works the next day, and then, tries to recuperate, but you go home and you have, little kids and some things, and then you work another day. It's a little harder, I think, in this schedule actually to kind of control that than go to a 48, a true 48.
Because you have so many counterparts running this schedule, is there any impact to citizens, to services or treatment levels that they've seen?
There haven't been any reports of reduced level of service, if that's what you're asking.
And that reporting you would be getting would be coming from your counterparts?
Yeah. And there are some departments have done a good job of doing what we are proposing to do, of tracking those things in an objective manner throughout a trial, and those objective methods of tracking that data have also shown.
So do you have that information that shows how they tracked it?
Yeah, and I guess one of the things we'll bring in, I think the best example that we found of this trial period was San Jose Fire Department when they made the transition about 3 or 4 years ago now. They laid it all out just like we're proposing to do in a manual ahead of time with everything we're going to track, everything we've read everything ahead of time as to how we'll actually analyze this information and determine if it has a significant impact, positive or negative, on our.
Any other departments outside of California that did the tracking?
That
information?
But I think a lot of departments have done the tracking, but none have published it.
Okay.
And not that none have published it, but none have done such a good job of putting it all together in a good published document.
Are you bringing forward the implementation manual?
I guess that's something we have to decide here in this group. I don't know that it's necessarily ready to include a item for this contract, but we could certainly share the draft.
So at this point, you've had discussions with, go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So go ahead.
So at this point, you've had discussions about the implementation manual with command staff at?
Yeah, to mostly determine, what kind of things, if we were to do a schedule change, what are the things we want to be looking at? What kind of items we want to track that we can do objectively? Things like tracking sick leave, tracking on-the-job injuries, tracking, overtime costs, things like that. Just stuff that we have good, solid, hard data on that we can analyze and determine if there's actually impact negatively.
Thanks.
And you asked about other departments that have documented this. It's a little bit dated now because it's not as current as San Jose, but West Metro in Colorado did a fair amount of study, and then after they moved to the schedule, they went back and reviewed some of it as well.
So West Metro, Colorado, California, San Jose, Bay Area-ish. And that's pretty much it as far as what you have at this point, as far as documentation?
There's information from several other departments out there, and we can, certainly could get more from those others that have made the switch. But most places have done this in more of a, I guess, subjective manner, where they agree to a trial and they say, let's just evaluate at the end and say, do we feel like it was good or bad or neutral? And everybody said, well, we feel like it was good or neutral, so let's just stick with it. And I think that works, and we could certainly do that, but we're proposing that we take a little more objective approach to it.
Okay.
For everybody's benefit, I think.
Would it be helpful if we brought those studies today? We could probably get those to you guys today if you'd like.
For us to use them as part of the negotiation, they do have to be delivered in the meeting. So it would either have to be today, and I know next week is bad for the union, so we would be 2 weeks out before we could get them into the record for consideration.
We're fine if you wait till later, but as Heather said, in a meeting would be great.
Do you have any other items, Andy?
Yeah, we've got one more.
Because this one wasn't big enough to try to wrap my head around.
Well, and I mean, it's a little easier for those of us that work the schedule. So this one is a change to our vacation. Right now, we're currently allowed to have 3 employees off on vacation at any given time. We've been at 3 vacation slots since the 90s. And in that time, we've increased our staffing by about 9 personnel per shift. And so what this would do is this would give us 1 vacation slot per 6 individuals on shift or on the platoon. And that would increase, right now our staffing is 27. So we would have 4 slots. That would increase our vacation allotment by 1. But if in the future we did have another station and increased staffing again that put us over that 30 threshold, then we would at that time get a 5th. So this is just building it in so that it's something that we don't have to revisit.
And the department, the industry as a whole has a tendency to do this. When they say chief, there's like 4 of you that can respond. And ops chief is what title?
Sorry, operations chief is the AC of operations. That would be O'Hearn's position.
Okay. Whenever they say chief, I'm not sure which one of you is going to respond.
No, none of us. Well, except for Curtis.
Battalion chief.
Battalion chief. So we don't have 20 to slide across the table. That's what we've got for right now.
Are you going to slide any back across the table?
What's that?
Are you going to slide any back across the table?
Really, we want to have a little bit of time to absorb them. I mean, there were several in there that on the surface looked really easy, but we're gonna go. When we went back and had our break, our discussion, other than, I mean, obviously we were talking about a few items that you guys had brought forward, but our discussion was more focused on making sure of which proposals we're bringing back in here for you. We're gonna have to take a little bit of time, and then we'll be able to do that next meeting, or we'll be able to have a little more discussion. I'm sure we'll have some come back across the table next meeting. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it for today.
You had mentioned that you were working on some economic ones. I mean, are you willing to share any of those?
We'll try to be compliant and go with the non-economic first. We don't want to jump language.
Well,
So I
and-
think there's a little confusion. We've always been able to throw all the proposals on the table. We just typically don't discuss the economic ones until we handle the non-economic. But this is the first time that we've been holding on to economics till the third one. So we've always, the intent of that wasn't to hold them till the third meeting. It was just to discuss them after we handle the non-economic, so we don't end up tying, one to the other. But as far as holding them till the third, that was never the intent of that language. It was just to not discuss them first in line.
We don't have any economic that
Okay.
we will put on the table today.
Okay. I think that's what we've got for the day. I think we should decide when we're going to have our next meeting.
So I believe next week is bad for the union.
It is. We could meet Monday, but that would be it.
Nope, we can't meet Monday.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm looking at budget brutality.
What about Monday, the 24th? Because we will be closing in on our 30-day window. And if we do it Monday, then that way we have the ability to build in more sessions that week.
The problem is our next budget session with council is until the 27th, so we lack general direction on some major budget factors if we meet before then. And I
Okay.
know that sounds odd, but this budget cycle has just been something special.
Yeah. Well, and I guess my thought is that if we get here and we put some proposals on the table, then at least you have the ability to go into that meeting with the council and say, this is where we're at.
Jim, do you have a preference?
Well, 24th is probably okay for me.
We've got one interview, Heather.
I know.
I've got one more to schedule too.
We would have, we could do afternoon of the 24th.
Okay. Afternoon, starting at,
How about 1:30?
okay. Everybody good with that?
Let me hog all the conference rooms real quick. All right, and we'll get the notice sent out, and Andrea will send out those corrected minutes.
Do you want to
want me to-
re-sign him, or do you want me to just change his name?
I think you should just change them. I mean, I'm glad to sign them if you've got
I
them.
can just change
here.
that first page, because that's all it is, so you don't need to come re-sign it.
Okay.
Unless he wants to change his name.
Who
Totally
was
up
it
to you,
that
Nick.
they
It's
missed
Nick.
it? Oh,
I
Nick.
didn't know there was anything going on, so.
Oh, he didn't even notice.
All right, well, thank you for meeting today.
Yeah.